Um, but yeah, so to review, as far as where we're at right now, so we don't know how, as far as the schedule of anything, we can't really tell right now because things are getting worse with the disease and all of
Yep.
that. So, but one thing that can be like related to the actual Steam Camp program, one thing that we can say is perhaps the remote option is a possibility, though that would be a totally different thing, but not totally different, as in whatever value we generate for the Steam camps. I think the documented part, there could be an online component that's relevant, that's the same in both cases, and in fact, it's an opportunity to do really well on documenting all that and offering an online package. Because actually, like if you also then include the kit, I mean, yeah, you can do pretty much a lot of it outside of the direct communication that you have with your people that you meet. But beyond that, I mean, I think a lot of the experience we can simulate. Numbers as well, like if you have a lot of people, I mean, perhaps if maybe it's even a better opportunity because more people can participate from the comforts of their homes. So it's like perhaps it's even an opportunity that may be quite scalable. So so it's an interesting thing. But I think the first thing altogether is, I would say the weakness we have right now is the curriculum needs to get really tight. Like we've gone through the program. I think people have in general a pretty good time, but some of the feedback was I think it definitely needs to be more streamlined. So for example, like if we're doing the say the pen plotter edition, it doesn't take us like 4 hours. It's an hour exercise. It's a thing where we've got a very tight program. Everything is tight. In fact, today I wrote down some notes. I kind of started going off on, okay, what do you need to have a super quality, very tight program? And I wrote down like about 30 items that we want to have, and I don't think we should maybe go through them right now, or we can if we want to. But you can get pretty rigorous on, okay, how exactly you do it, how you train everybody to do the same, how do we make sure the quality and the results are the same across the board, how do you involve the community, how do you make it a really valuable thing, at the same time connected to the much bigger picture, because I think the unique part that we have is, unlike anything else, any kind of other kit, is we always strive for that direct relation to industrial productivity on a small scale, like the real applications. Okay, here's how you can scale it or make it practical. Like this is so we're looking at as modular building blocks. Like for example, the DIY Arduino. Well, a perfect case like COVID right now. If we have those chips and a few components, we can actually make them ourselves without having to rely on having the whole fine, detailed, full Arduino. We can make a super simple one for a particular purpose. Like right now, I was actually thinking about that as a case example. Super simple Arduino with a remote camera to look at my print cluster, because now I'm getting ready to do the larger printers, and each failed print would be like a $20 loss. So okay, I want to make sure that if there's any failure, I would have a remote camera to watch that. And here's a perfect example. We can use our little system to make an IP camera, for example. So always applications towards real things and powerful
Hmm.
things too. So I think that's the real value, and I think we can go far, once again, along the module-based approach, trying to, like, I think if I talk about open source ecology, what are the two main innovations? I would say that's extreme manufacturing and module-based design. So extreme manufacturing, the ability that you can build a large machine in a single day with a bunch of untrained people. Module-based design, how you can break down something into such a small part that you can have a large team working on it together in rapid time. So we've seen a great evidence of the like literally the limitless potential of each of those. Now it's time for the rubber to hit the road. I think the relevant thing is on the modularity part is that, like, especially even right now, like if you talk about, for example, the COVID personal protective equipment, you can completely turn that into a modular construction set. And you can really break it down into small elements, like, okay, say there's the masks, say there's a filter. Well, the same filter could be an air purifier. It could be a powered air purifying apparatus for that people wear, the doctors wear. It could be a purifier for a 3D printer. Like, for example, Ultimaker has a purifier on their printers so that you don't stink up your room. So that's an example of a filter. In it, you have the battery packs, the same battery packs that we've done in a steam camp. They could be used to power that powered air purifying respirator, or battery packs for a headlamp that you can produce, or whatever you got. So you can completely modularize it, filter elements, 3D printed parts, gaskets, even down to things like printing clear materials. There's actually ways to do that. There's many things you can do. Like, so you can think about, okay, so say you got like ear pieces for protection on ears, you've got eye pieces, you got mouth pieces, and really try to break it down into small parts that are then tangible, like to develop on a as a distributed effort. Because, for example, you see right now with all the different projects out there, one comment I could make from the OSE perspective is that they're all like doing this whole thing, project. But if they all perhaps collaborated and took little module that makes up the project, then I think all the projects could collaborate on the modules themselves. And that would be a paradigm shifter. As long as you can manage that process, and I don't think anybody has developed that kind of process. I think we're the closest to having such a process like that. But I'm also noticing that right now, as we move forward, that we're still like, we can't do a powerful, grand collaborative effort because we don't have people, not enough people. But the bigger thing is also not enough people knowing the collaborative literacy part, the techniques and tools of how you work as a large team. So
I think
there's that.
final part is like really a selling point, because I've been looking around. There are so many COVID-19 open source groups and helping medical groups and such. The biggest problem is almost to have like a clear process development flow for these collaborative projects, have a way to coordinate, having work not being duplicated, because like you have hundreds of people who makes different versions of masks, and maybe only one of them will actually be useful. And so one way which open source ecology can really contribute is to use the experience of how to develop a resource with people who are not maybe from the beginning trained engineer, like what is the minimal education which is necessary to be able to help in a productive way, which actually is meaningful. So there's a lot of content there, and I think if people have that ability and those competencies and tools and practical tools, if they know, okay, if I want to help, then first I do 1, then I do 2, then I do 3, then people's motivation might be longer. But right now, when there's like COVID-19, is clear focus, so people are already motivated, but people will also be able to be more helpful and more productive. I think if we manage to teach this in a good way. And on the second note, which you mentioned earlier, to look into the ability to maybe do online teaching or online collaboration is also a huge part, as it would allow to scale without needing to be on each location, and would also allow for income which doesn't require as much cost for each time it runs. It might require an initial cost, but once it's up and running, then it's basically just produce benefits and profits, except for those who copy the open source, which they can do as well, but then at least it produce benefits. So it might be a really good opportunity to teach people about coordination, and a good opportunity for us to learn how this can be taken into a virtual reality.
No, that's right. I agree with you on those points. I think we're on the same page. And the thing that also I think I'm getting more clarity on is I've been talking for a decade about mass creation of right livelihood, and we have to be very explicit about it. And why I'm calling out for the larger numbers is that the initial intent of the STEAM camps, the 9-day version, was that we do significant development in those 5 project days on a real product that then goes into the open source everything store, and is something that you got your printer, you can bootstrap to a production grade printer like the Pro, but you can start making these things. So there's one side is the experience that you're learning, the skills, but we can't forget about the part of economically significant production. And right now, I think my mind has shifted. Like, I think the metric we want to talk about is probably how do you create an enterprise? Like, how do we attract thousands of people to develop that are required to develop this new economy, right? I think the one clarity, I was just thinking about it today, is $50 an hour. Can we create a robust open source distributed enterprise that gets you $50 an hour? That's and we can start looking at the numbers. So you got yourself a 3D printer. You can start getting into production of various things. You can start an online print shop, which actually I was thinking about that. That's actually not a bad idea because the tools are pretty much such that within the wiki you can create an online 3D printing web order service relatively easily. Things like that. But if you go through all the options, there's a lot of different opportunities, and I think there's a whole product ecology that can be created. And I think that's the way we have to frame it. Like when we approach people, it's like, okay, this is something you can do. I mean, we've been saying this. You can do this, say the Steam camps as a part-time thing, but if you really want to take control of your self-determination, as in like you're going to be working for what's meaningful for you, we take that, of course, as open source economic development of one form or another, then yes, you have an opportunity to do that. So the message we can give to people is, okay, this is not like, once again, we're different than anything else in that it's about real livelihood creation. And with the 3D printing, it's, I think we're getting very, very close to breakthrough on that. I think the two missing links which are readily attainable. One is the slightly larger printer, like 12 or 18 inches, 18 inches probably. So you can put like a whole, you don't have to do like 10 prints to print out parts. You do one print on this big bed, and that's another replication of a printer. Because right now it takes a bit of time. Say you got an 8-inch bed on our pros right now. I mean, you got to do many multiple prints to get all the parts for another pro. So with a larger bed, one time. So we're talking 5 minutes of labor. You know, you basically maybe babysit make sure the first layer gets good. But like 5 minutes just to hit run and print it, and you got a whole good product that you can sell at a decent price, because your labor is very much affordable in that case. So the larger printer is one, readily attainable, and that's how we can actually, like, I was thinking about that, it's like, wow, we are so well positioned to do that. Because we are completely scalable. Right now, the exact same technology that works for the 8-inch will work for about an 18-inch bed. Might work up to 24 inches. But the same thing, the 3D printed corners and everything like that. And the other thing is the high temperature chamber, build chamber, because right now I say that you can effectively print in PLA and TPU, PETG. That's about it. Everything else warps once you get off the bed, and it's really limited what you can do right now. But with the high temperature chamber, you're talking about perfect prints in nylon, polycarbonate, PEEK, PEI. I mean, these are these advanced plastics that, medical grade things for high temperature things, like people are talking a lot about in the COVID crisis. They say, okay, you got to have things that are washable in hot water. Well, you can't do that with PLA, stuff like that. So yeah, the high temperature chamber, I'm working on it. Like right now, I'm getting a larger printer set up, but I think there's huge opportunities there. So essentially, you've got yourself a 3D printer and a torch table. I'm basically gonna, like right now, what I'm doing is I'm getting the torch table and printers up so we can make shredders. Because actually, I'm running into not being able to get filament. I already cannot get the same black filament from Matter Hackers. It's sold out. Gee, okay. The supply chain issues are hitting already. So actually, the new printers are going to be blue because I can't get black. So that's one artifact. But that tells me, okay, shredders, we're making our plastic, and that's going to happen within a few weeks because we got to do it. But with the torch table cutting out shredder parts, you got the 3D printers, torch tables. That's a robust microfactory right there, and we have to be very clear about it. It's like the amount of products you can do. Like examples, my headphones. This amazing 3D printed rubber wallet, parametric and OpenSCAD. Look at Chris Log on the wiki. Can parametrize it. That's a product.
Is the
whatever.
soft part also? Is it TPU or what's the
This
material?
one is TPU. It's rubber. It's super flexible. It's very flexible, but you can't rip it. This is a really good product. This is a well-designed thing. You can change the number of pockets. You can change the size. It's all parametric and OpenSCAD. This is a
Yeah.
product. These
Um,
headphones are a product. It's literally unlimited, like fittings. I mean, it sounds simple, but fittings, rubber O-rings. I mean, it's just insane what you can do. Like, take these ear protective, these are not 3D printed, but take these sound muffling ear muffs. I mean, that's basically this in a little different way. Like, you make the headband stronger and stuff like that. So there's that construction set approach thing. But yeah, um, the power is really immense. And I think, I mean, the challenge is that, so how come we can't get any people to do this? And I think we got to get very clear on what it takes to, okay, let's attract the people. Let's give them a very clear value proposition for what they're getting into. But why I said the 12 by 12 program, so 12 by 12 means 12 events, 12 people each. Did you take a look at the 10x is easier than 2x?
yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's good. I mean, in one way, it's so optimization or like global optimization instead of micro optimization.
Yeah.
Like once you reach a certain peak, you can't really go any further. So you put so much effort and there's no big difference. What was new to me was the thinking about it from a psychological perspective
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely.
So the macro thing, like the global thing, I've always like been thinking about that since I think in terms of like system innovation. But the psychological parts, especially, I think I don't know if it's true for everyone, but definitely for like the entrepreneurial open type who like scores high in openness and who basically wants self-determination. In other words, so that part was nice.
Yeah.
And I think I'm actually going to try his method. It was like increasing free energy things and take away free stuff, as he called it.
Stuff. Yeah, get rid of stuff. So
Yeah,
I put a
exactly.
link. So I'm taking notes if anyone wants to see that. 10x is easier than 2x. It's on the wiki. Andreas notes. That's going to go on today's meeting notes. But yes, you said it. It's the psychological perspective that's critical. And if you study what I'm doing, I've been doing that. The whole initial premise of GVCS is that it's a big, hairy, audacious goal, and it's impossible. So that's where it takes creativity to do that. And I totally resonate. When I saw that 10x is easier than 2x, I was like, wow, that is super cool. And I've been practicing that maybe for like a year or two in terms of how I think about things. But based on that, what can we say about, say, the 12 events times 12? Like, is it possible? Okay, so if we take that as a premise, then we can say there's marketing, there's cost of customer acquisition, there's certain prerequisites that are needed for that event. So how about if we just outline in detail exactly what that is? And I think we talked about the curriculum. That thing, we need to get it super tight. What I'm seeing with the curriculum specifically is that there's about 12 or so lessons in the first 4 days that need to be super tight. The first day, I can handle that, but we don't have a super tight thing on a plotter, on a mill, on an Arduino. Those are kind of like we're kind of bumbling through it and learning. Like some people love that. Like Jessica didn't mind that. She loved that kind of environment. But I think a lot of people would like more structure, and it's like bam, let's just get it done. And I think that's actually provides more value too, because you can still do all the exploration, but after you get these basics just bam out of the way. So the curriculum is one of the bigger requirements, but then we can say what are all the other requirements in this package that need to be in place for a result to be obtained. And then we can say, well, how do we measure those things? And how, upon measurement, how do we improve them all the time? But I think we can start with I'd be willing to go to say, okay, let's say 12 by 12, and let's be honest as far as what it takes. And then we can identify a bunch of gaps. And then we can say, okay, are we in a position to meet those gaps, or what else do we need and have that can meet those requirements. And I think that'll be a useful approach, because I think the psychological game here, it's like we gotta make it 10x better and really excite people. And I think that excitement is already there, and I think my feedback on the overall thing is that yes, the program warrants this approach where you say, like, even like if it takes money to pay people to develop that, like do that curriculum, I mean, maybe that's what it takes, then we have to get it. What are all the other ways? Like, can we offer, like, say we recruit a number of people by different approaches. We can take, okay, we need people, absolutely. We can take a look at, okay, what are the best strategies for doing that? Do we have the time? Do we have the resource to do that? Or can we get the resource, like get this funded or something? But I'm thinking that the biggest value that exists anywhere is the people. I think if we can approach it through the perspective of the people, because we don't need money, we need that which money can buy, and that is people's time, but not time, their focus, right? So can we get their focus through other ways, is the question. So we can explore that and get rigorous on what exactly is required, what incentives we can put in place. Maybe we haven't been thinking about some incentives. One thing that comes to my mind is, like, what if we take a look at, like, say we do look at the global schedule, because so let's take a look at that STEAM Camp schedule. There's a page called STEAM Camp schedule, and in it we have a link to the calendar, which is breaks throughout the world, see vacations. But this is what, let me actually share my screen there. So for vacations, this is an outline that says that the circled parts show those breaks in countries in the northern and southern hemisphere across the globe. Well, there's a break every single month except like November. October, November are leanest, but everywhere else you got plenty of breaks, like vacations, because basically you have to think that December and January is the summer in the southern hemisphere, and that's a break for the southern hemisphere. So you've got that. So definitely it's possible to do 2 STEAM camps a year. And now you start to think, okay, what other breaks are there? But if you look at this, there's major, like I picked big markets: China, Japan, USA, South Africa, at least 50 million populations. China's into the billion. But those are all big markets that are scattered every quarter. So maybe that's the way to go. But what about, like, if we were to reach out? Okay, let's try to recruit a leader for that. You know, let's work hard on. Okay, let's get the Chinese lead of the STEAM camp or whatever, or the Japanese lead. So maybe like focus by country or something like that, and go through the networks
or region.
there. Yeah, or region.
I mean, there are some problems with like some of the countries where. So I discussed a lot with Sivash regarding like Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and mainland China. And English is definitely one of the biggest challenges. People may understand, be able to read, but maybe their ability to contribute in English is a little bit limited. One way of trying to kind of use that to our advantage is to was his proposal to combine it with making the proposal that this is not only about open source, but it's also an ability for you to learn English, because a lot of people in these countries want to improve their English as well. So it can, using that as part of the branding instead of seeing it as an obstacle. And then another alternative is to go for private schools where there are more people who have English teaching as a major focus, especially in China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Well, Hong Kong wouldn't be a problem, but Taiwan and mainland China, like Chongqing, or however I pronounce that, in south of China, is a big tech hub where we would be able to probably, hopefully, make something. Of course, we will have other difficulties there, but working in terms of like the Eastern Asian region as one big project, I think is quite good. And then focusing on Europe. Well, Europe and Africa, same time zone. So that has America, both North and South America are in one time zone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to look on the Steam Camps review, which I made before I got your document?
I think I saw that. I saw your feedback on the document.
Okay, so I made another document. Posted the link in the chat and on the log.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so this is more like a thinking document, but like before putting down a strategy for the different goals, I wanted to more or less question every goal, like just asking why over and over again, like what's the purpose of all of the different parts, and then reconstruct new goals out of that. And the initial results are the parts I put in this list from that, and then we can of course.
Let's before we go there, let's also review something else, which is what I mentioned about one of the clarities is about mass creation of right livelihood. So how does this fit into the overall product strategy of OSC? So you got the Steam Camps, which are in theory fueling people to be capable to participate in an incentive challenge, but lately I've also been thinking, okay, there's the how does this relate to the open source everything store? How do we so templates on a wiki where you actually have a buy button, right?
Yeah.
How can we include that as the after part of the events? Because I think we can continue the development after.
It's an important part. It's something which I put in italic in this document as well, and very short about it. Basically nothing about it, just that it would bring value for the people who are there because of our mission of self-determination and their ability to create what they need themselves. So it is a very natural and logical next step. One thing which I'm thinking, both combined with what you said before regarding microfactories, is to brand kind of a microfactory that people will learn how to build a microfactory, but we will also help them and mentoring them to some degree into using this microfactory to actually earn a living. So it can be that they don't only come and build things and then we forget about them, but part of the Steam camp might be, let's say they would build a micro circular economy. So maybe they build a 3D printer, a shredder, and a filament extruder. And then the next part of the course can be how to capitalize on that. Yeah. And part of the training, they set up accounts and they do what is necessary for them to, when they come home, they can actually directly use the products and earn a living from it.
Yeah, I like it. I put down some notes about the before, during, and after unit of the whole event. Just one more thing here. When you talk about setting up a microfactory, one thing, so basically think about this already, like we were going pretty decent into the summer, right? We were lining up 3 events in private schools that were, they promised that they would have a captive audience of at least 12 students. That was good. And then one discussion also led to, hey, there's a Chamber of Commerce on my island. This was in Washington. They'd love to hear something about that. So schools, say private schools or other school, or just individuals, definitely looking up like who's a stakeholder in a community who wants this. It's like, how about a Chamber of Commerce that is all about entrepreneurial development? And the guy in Washington said, hey, if you propose the startup of a microfactory to the Chamber of Commerce, you'll easily get that funded, because a lot of chambers of commerce also have initiatives where they fund projects in their community. So you're combining the local person with that kind of a funding source, and maybe we make that part of the program. It's like, okay, so part of this, we're going to teach you or encourage you to reach out to your chamber of commerce, get mentorship, like, and so forth. I mean, that's another opportunity we have not really touched. We're just getting into that as before the virus broke out. But that's definitely a way, like thinking about the microfactory in a community. Like start with a single printer, have some space. Like I would say definitely the Chamber of Commerce. Go to the Chamber of Commerce, ask for somebody to donate you a space on Main Street, a room where you're running your 3D printer shop or whatever. So you're starting to get into okay, here's the physical space. We can start meetups there. We can start the actual classes and things like that. And one last thing about business development I was thinking about is the idea of position this. So I've actually watched Fred Rogers. You know Fred Rogers?
Sorry.
Oh, man. It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. You guys don't know Fred Rogers in Europe? So he's a big... Jessica, you clearly know Fred Rogers, right? Who that is? So I don't know if Jessica's there. Fred Rogers is the guy... there was just a movie that came out about him, but he was a guy who ran this children's TV show, and he was like the most beloved guy in American TV, and had a program for the longest time in American history for like 30 years until he died. But he was basically teaching children how to feel good and deal about themselves and deal with their emotions and how to grow up and stuff like that. And he dealt with real topics like death, divorce, and I mean everything, parents quarreling. And so it was super inspiring. But based on that, it's like I was thinking about that. It's like, okay, that's when I think of OSC, like, so Fred Rogers talks a lot about authenticity, and if I talk about OSC, it's like we also talk about authenticity and an ethical economy. So Fred Rogers was interesting in that one of his platforms points was, let's teach our children not to be consumers. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So thinking about that, I think we can brand one of our events like the builds, like I mentioned the internet camera project, right? Well, if you analyze the internet camera project, China can offer that for you for $18. But what they can't offer you is the experience of like really owning that, because you can use it for your life if you build it yourself. But also, what about a child-parent bonding relationship? Okay, sign up for a workshop, 3 hours, build it, bond with your children. So basically, and teach your children not to be consumers, kind of a deal. So I thought this kind of a package outside of, so there's this Steam Camp, which is the big deal for 9 days, like serious, you're into actually contributing to real product development. But then there's this super tiny thing, which could be excellent for marketing purposes and getting tons of people to get a little taste of what this is about. So that's just a thought I had yesterday, and I think we gotta hit that in some way, because that would feed directly into the Open Source Everything store. Those would be products that, well, for the 3-hour parent-child session, we'd have to have those products well developed. But to develop them, like once they're developed, they'd be excellent kits and products for the Open Source Everything store that could be sold as kits. They could be sold as the real live experience in your community microfactory. So there's this whole web of things we can be thinking about in this whole package. But okay, I'll shut up and let's go through more of the analysis of the Steam camps.
I think it is a really good idea. And one thing which has worried me a little, or like, okay, maybe not worried, but like is the biggest obstacle is the 9-day event, because as it is right now, we need, as I understand from your experiences, that for this 5-day part, we need a lot of participants, and it's hard to get participants before they have trust that we can deliver something. So if we need a lot of participants in order to attract a lot of participants, it might be a bit tricky. So one thing which I was thinking is if there's a way to kind of bulletproof a good experience regardless. And one of the things I'm thinking about was if it's possible to somehow separate the two parts, like the 4-day part and the 5-day part. This is just an idea. I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but and that the 5-day part is more like a global online experience. So that people learn how to collaborate even when they're not physically there. you might have 4-day building camp event, and then you might have like follow-up weekend events where you together develop a product, and then you set up your account on Amazon or on Open Source Everything store, and then you sell it, and then you review how it went as a set of follow-up online workshops. And in this way, if there's a collaboration of projects, you can also have people who post online that, okay, this is my idea, this is my project. If anyone else wants to join it, then you can join in. And then they have a couple of weeks of finding other people who are like-minded. And then in this case, they would be able to find people from other parts of the world as well, without having the same problem of not being in the same time zone, as well as even if there's not so many people on the original platform or in their place, there might be a lot of people in another place, so people who are still interested in it.
I think bulletproofing and a great experience is a good notion. For the 5-day global experience, that would require a crash course, but I think that the crash course, like what I'm seeing is like a 4-hour crash course on the 4 main topics. Like one is just OSC, 2 is FreeCAD, 3 is collaboration, and 4 might be like enterprise. But like really distilled, here's the tools, here's how we work, so people can work effectively together, which would be a before unit of the Steam Camp, like that we could publish. So the idea would be that for the people that take the Steam Camp, they're not seeing the material for the first time. They're actually practicing and reviewing. But for the people, say, like if you said the 5-day is a global online experience, maybe that's other people, well, they would have to definitely take like the 4 basic hours. They would also have to have the prototyping equipment, which is the 3D printer primarily. So somehow that would need to be addressed. The one detail there is that we use 1.2 nozzles, which means we can get prints in an hour that would take like 5 hours normally or whatever. Things that are practical in a short day versus like with a 0.4 nozzle, it's like you have to wait till tomorrow. So a lot of people will not be set up for 1.2 nozzles because everyone does 0.4s. But that's one thing we have to address. Like we can either tell people, okay, switch out, upgrade to like the bigger nozzles with bigger heater blocks, or get one of our printers or however. But some of this experience, like the thing about D3D Universal is that the fat nozzle is there for a purpose, and it's for really rapid prototyping and strong prints that are fast. So but yeah, bulletproof, a great experience. I like it.
So yeah, I wasn't thinking like this 5-day instead of the 4 days. I was thinking that you have the 4 days on place, so you actually get to build the necessary equipment, and then you take it home, and then you use them for the 5-day online experience. So it's like 2 modules of the same course. So it's not that people go directly into the 5-day without having been on the workshop.
Actually, like
it would also allow, if necessary, to have another setup of workshops where it's run on the weekends, the first 2 weekends, so that if it would be impossible, for example, I know in Taiwan and also in Japan, they basically don't have vacation. They might have 1 week vacation. And then taking 1 week of going on these camps is not really realistic, unless there are some makers. I understand that like in Hong Kong and Taiwan, in Shenzhen, there are some maker spaces. I don't know about Japan, but probably. But if you want to, then it would allow us to kind of distribute the same experience, but in a longer time frame, combining offline with online training or on-site training.
That's interesting. Now, when I was looking at the schedule on vacations, it looks like Japan is like March 15 through April 4. So they do have their like 3 week or so.
They have official vacation, but it's many people don't take the vacation because many people don't take the vacation. So
what do they do? They take like other classes?
They work instead. Or are you thinking about schools?
Schools.
Okay. Well, schools are in China. They are on like schools, after school schools, cram schools. Is that the word?
Yeah.
I don't know about Japan.
Yeah.
Gosh, has many connections in Shenzhen. Gosh.
I think.
Who's Gosh?
Gosh, Global Open Source Hardware.
Ah, okay. Thought it was a person. Great, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think to get to the point, the number one thing is I want to ask you how much time you can spend on this. But it's like we need to take those 12. I kind of am counting about 12. These lessons that we need to get super tight. So either like, so somewhere that energy has to come in. Someone needs to do it. We could either find a number of people, or one of us over time, one or few of us over time gets to do them. I'm thinking that like to do everything that's needed for like a 1 hour will take like 40 hours a pop, if we want to get it to like really polished, marketable product, I'd say. But that's only 12 weeks. That's just 3 months of full-time work by a single person if that were to happen. That's my estimation. What I was doing was I was looking at the curriculum that we talked about already, and just trying to get really rigorous on, okay, hour by hour game plan, and what's realistic, and what's just really scope it out in full detail as far as what's going on in there.
And then accept the relevant course content. We have to ensure that we have high quality teaching delivery, which is, we have to have good instructors who deliver this teaching as well. And that's something which takes time. Even if people are knowledgeable, like that you know something, it's not the same thing as you're a good teacher. And the same, if you're a good teacher doesn't mean that you're good at teaching this thing. It does take time to really develop, and it's part of the experience as well, having people to be on board. And in order to have good teachers, the teachers also need to have good supportive material and have good training, mentorship, and so forth. So it's definitely, there's many points at the same time which needs to go together to make this happen.
One comment I would have is, so to strategize how to do that most effectively. So what if, what's the strategy for development of the curriculum? Development and delivery.
I would like to first establish which goals we have and then build the strategy based on that, so we don't build a strategy based on the existing goals. If it's possible that we review all of the
go ahead.
The goals. And did you have a list already of the course content comments? Maybe I can add that as well.
Course content comments?
Yeah, you said that you had some thoughts about which part of the courses are good and which parts of the...
I could break that down based on the last, I can probably take today I was drawn up in my notebook, I was listing I see about 12 units of 1 hour. That's one side. Is that what you're referring to?
So yeah, both the how we were thinking in terms of modules, if you already have some thinking, but basically all you're thinking about the course content. If you have anything written down, or in your head, any type of experience. Also looked through the reviews which people have been given, but if there are some days which worked very well, then it's good to know, so we can look closer on that and what went well and so forth.
I would say I can tell you one thing, and that's a start which needs to happen right, and that's the printer we need strict quality control on it. In New Zealand, we got stuff built, and then we kind of kept messing with the printers, but either a remote or on-site person that's dedicated to that's super important to guarantee that you build it once and it works, and you don't have to go back at all to anything in the printer. That level is going to be critical, because otherwise then we've got curriculum in front of us and then we have to fix something on the printer. That can't happen. That would be the start number one, because all the machines rely on a printer for them to happen. So what happened in New Zealand, we took longer and basically missed a day of curriculum. It's no, that's not good. So, yeah.
Is it enough to fix the things is it bugs in the development which needs to be fixed? Is it enough to fix a certain feature or add something, or is it that we need?
I think it's adding $50 more to the kit, which is you never come to the program without a built extruder. That was my experience from New Zealand. We succeeded decently in Texas, so I can talk about my experience. But we were able to build extruders that worked really well. But this time around in New Zealand, nobody could get their extruder to work properly. I think actually there was one detail that I think was a killer, and that was that we had 3 millimeter filament. And the problem is 3 millimeter filament is not always 3 millimeter filament. Some of it is 3 millimeters and some is 2.85. We had the 3 millimeter version, and our printer is designed for 2.85. So I think that was the thing that was just killing us, and we kept getting clogged up. But things like that, it's just a bunch of critical details that you have to go through a checklist of. Every single one is not forgotten, acknowledged explicitly, not like, oh, it may or may not work. It's like, no, explicit long list of checkpoints. So I think it's there, but it's just someone's just got to do it. Like I was in a position to, with a bunch of high school kids there, like I was in a position to go through that checklist for everybody. So to begin with, we need that checklist that needs to be pretty much either self-executing by participants or a remote person or on-site person. There has to be a very clear mechanism for how we go through that quality control checklist.
Yeah, okay. And I think, are the people who were the lead designer or main designer of this D3D Universal still active volunteers?
So Chris, we worked on it during the startup camp, which was Chris, Michelle, and myself. Yeah, they're still on board. Yeah.
Right.
This is a thing. How do you address it both? I mean, how do you address it all? It's all actually on the wiki. Like all these things are scattered all over the place. Like we've done a quality control checklist for the D3D 1906, which was the release. We did that in the main manual. There's that. There's some on the latest. It's scattered in several places. So a lot of this is really about documentation and cleaning it up, putting it all together. Because every single detail that went wrong, it's somewhere on the wiki. The problem is, it's probably only I know where that all is. But someone could really scour the wiki to get familiar with it.
Yeah, that brings me to one of the actually goals which I put down, which is, so let's see, if I go through them, let's see if I can share the screen as well.
Yeah.
Right, so relevant course content and high quality teaching. So let's just add checklists to that one. That's sub goals. Instructor teaching, let's come to that. And you discussed a little bit unique value proposition. So let's focus on, and here I also added the entrepreneurial paths, which comes together with what you mentioned before as how can they earn a living after this, and giving them a clear path, but also there are other paths which is unique value. They might be able to use the design thinking professionally and so forth. We need media strategy, of course. And when it comes to documentation, this is both to meet the need of the participants, but also of the instructors and people who develops. Basically, to have it's good if we have a documentation which is as self-serving as possible. So we provide both documentation which is which is both linear. So start here, watch this video, read through these documents, but also non-linear, so they can find things when they need to find it. I think that's a quite big thing, especially when you have a very decentralized documentation system as it is right now. For example, we can have wiki portals and make sure we have a very clear quality control of the main pages, but also that we have control of which version is the newest version, so that people always know. If they don't know which wiki page to go to, they at least know which portal to go to, so that from that portal they will be able to find the right wiki page. I'm not sure if it would be very interesting to see if it's possible to combine it with GitHub somehow. I don't know if that is possible. I don't have so much experience from that, but some quality control or version control.
Yeah.
Also for the documents. For example, Siraj, he wasn't sure which bill of material to go through, if it was the newest one, which of the D3D manuals to go through, and so forth. He managed to pull it together after a while, but he had to spend a lot of time of looking through the wiki page.
Yeah, this part is actually like, that's in a four-hour crash course, but one of them includes taxonomy. Like, for example, the way you can find, to address the issue of version, you go to 3D printer genealogy page on the wiki and tells you what the latest version is. So there's genealogies. There's a small lesson on taxonomy that people who want to develop, like the instructors, definitely have to be familiar with genealogy. But yeah, this is stuff that we really need to, like the before, during, after unit of this whole program. We got to make those resources crystal clear and just organize all of this. But yeah, the other thing is that I want to mention is templates on the wiki. So if you notice the development template, last meeting I showed one-liner, and it gets you that whole template all seeded with the correct placeholders. Templates, we got to get back to them and use them on the wiki.
Yes. So that would be a part of the training as well, to provide training of how to use the self-serving documentation.
Yeah.
But I also imagine that some people, it's good if each page has some kind of pointer to where to look for if you are lost. So if someone comes from a Facebook page or another group or another web page and they land on our D3D Universal page, that they have enough information to figure out how everything works without having gone through.
Yeah, that's called quality control on those wiki pages. We need a manager for the wiki pages, but that could also be addressed in a big way through templates. So here you have the formal template. It really lays out all the content that needs to be there, and through either a single line or multiple short lines, somebody can get the proper documentation for the whole thing. So we can have specialized templates for everything. Like one is the development, one is like a project page. Like during the Steam Camp, we use this template. I mean, there's tons of them you could make. So you should probably prioritize some that are relevant to this organizational effort. Like, you know how you have info boxes and pages on Wikipedia that all look like well organized or decently organized? We need something similar to that. Info boxes are a good thing, and things like that.
In standard format.
Standard format. So when you see something like, okay, I recognize it, it starts to look like it makes sense. But a very relevant thing would be for each of the 12 lessons. Maybe start with that. Let's get a good template for what each should have, and I can get you I can copy my notebook here, but it's not well legible. This is my page of notes. This is like 33 items that I wrote down. That's what the curriculum page has to have. I can each one of them is a discussion and explanation, though, because I put crazy stuff like, well, first of all, it's like a formal lesson. Like you'd see, like a teacher would have a formal lesson plan. You'd have to have a hardware BOM. At the end, you want one radical thing is there's a buy button for either the kit or the actual webinar that you do that. So treat that as a single module that goes into the whole Steam Camp, but say you can buy the individual thing even. So there's a product thing right there associated with that. And a kit that we're making in that lesson should be a marketable kit. It should be something essential that's good enough for people to pay for. Things like that. So we can get crazy on that, but things like part library for that particular experiment. So that's FreeCAD and part libraries that you can practice. One item is, the meta item is the template for this page. I wrote it as one of the things here. There's a badge, a badge for how do you know you know this? Here's an exam and here's a badge, things like that. So I can kind of, I think it's worth to list them. I'll copy that down into digital format. The other thing that, just for your awareness, so one of our guys is doing a 3D printer workbench. It's a really cool thing because you can now design a 3D printer of any size and any axis configuration pretty quickly. but the same pattern in FreeCAD can apply. So you can have a very simple, like what I would like to see for the Steam camps is, and that's kind of like more for the power users, but it should be there for power users. But what you do is, if you know Python, so FreeCAD is in Python, you would do a simple thing where you put icons, because you can reprogram FreeCAD to create any workbench, and we already know how to do that, and we can template that. So imagine you put like little pictures, little icons on top, which correspond to each part of a project. You click it, and it goes into the edit window. You click another, so you basically can compose an entire thing just with a click of a button. You can build that experiment. Like say it's the Arduino. Okay, put in a chip, put in a light, put in like the electrical components. You can even do that in FreeCAD, and then all it is that the FreeCAD design workbench, say the Arduino design workbench in FreeCAD, all it is buttons and the fact that the things are already in memory, so you've got that proper CAD that you can now play with. So that's not difficult to execute at all within FreeCAD, and we should probably do that for each project. It sounds like a little advanced, but when you look into FreeCAD, we can template that. So taking it from the idea that, like before we have a template for something complex, it's like, wow, where do you start? But once you have the template, you invoke it with one line, you know? That's kind of how FreeCAD can become for the purpose of construction set design. You just populate the FreeCAD workbench with all the CAD. You have simple icons to just put them into the working dock. That's it. And that in itself is so powerful because it can save you like minutes, many minutes. Like in like a minute, you can do what would take you like hours to do if you had the part libraries just in the part libraries on a wiki page, you know? So things like that. But I mean, we can go crazy with what we can do, but we have to decide, okay, what's the narrow focus of say it's the lesson on that particular thing that's a very high quality thing. What are all those elements that go into that lesson, and can we get people, like the key is modularity, like the radical modular breakdown. We take a very small part, so maybe we can start saying, okay, here's the list of items we need, let's now try to get people to do it as small contributions with a larger team, the block there being that you have to invite and find those people, or more centralized approach where it's like one person focuses on that and just gets that done. So different ways to do it.
Is there already someone who's working on this workbench, did you say?
Well, so G, this guy G, look at Glog. He's doing a 3D printer workbench. Now that workbench is advanced because it has logic in it. So Glog. Let me. So look, I just put it in the chat there. But that's actually I'm not talking about that level. In there, when you click a button, it actually puts things in the right place. And you can like modify things and things like that. So we're not talking even at that level of advancement. We're just saying plain, let's get the proper parts to build a complex device. Like for example, imagine how powerful that would be for a tractor. If you had all the modular building blocks for a tractor, you can just drag and drop them, and you can literally, a novice can start composing a tractor that will work because the parts in there are engineered already. They're modules, according to our method. So this is like, we have an amazing power that we can have here. And imagine, now get a little more funky, add AI to that, where, I mean, that's superpower user stuff, but you can be generating your own generative design is around the corner with FreeCAD and AI is becoming very open source. So stuff like that. But anyway, the basic FreeCAD workbench for any project is something I think well within reach. Like, so I could probably learn that in an hour or two if G would teach me that. You know, he knows how to do that. So.
Right. So I'm thinking also like how to modularize not only all of the different content and deliver, but also as we develop a good Steam experience in the end, that how to get income on the way. One idea is that, as you said, we have all of these different modules and make super neat, good parts in different parts of types of collaboration, and later on using that for product development, and building online courses from that, so that when we have made a course that our instructors will use, that we also upload it and for example on Udemy, so people can learn at least the parts where they don't need to have a 3D printer, maybe even 3D printed, but they need certain prerequisites.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
then
maybe we could do an incentive that where we say contribute to the event. We put it on Udemy. You get like 50% revenue share or something like that for people who contribute to it. I mean,
yeah,
have you heard of Sensorica?
yeah,
They seem to have stuff surrounding the Open Value Network, which sounds open, but it's a proprietary consortium in truth. But I think we can learn a lot from them in terms of how they solve that intractable problem of attributing the value of contributions. Like, I think that's an impossible problem, but they might have some insights. I actually do want to talk to Tiberius, is his name. Maybe there's some good lessons we have there regarding how, because they apparently have a model where they actually can divide, like they keep track of who did what, and then they actually pay people. I mean, I don't believe that's possible, but they've had some success with it. I personally don't like the idea of tracking at all, because the revenue model for open source is typically where it's open to everybody, because it's just too hard to keep track of contributions. But I could see, like, for example, if you do this course online, it's a small enough thing, and then we end up, say, posting it. So yeah, like a 50-50 revenue share. That's like, it's not going to be fair. The problem is that none of it is going to be fair, because you cannot attribute what exactly is. You can't predict the future of how much is it going to sell and all of that. So I believe it's a fundamental impossibility, because you can't predict the future simply. But I think we can use it in some way, in a limited way.
Yeah, I agree. I think having like a simple rule is good enough. Starting to track how much people do, because if we start to track and then we pay out, then well, in the end we start to converge towards transactional economy, and I guess that's what we want to move away from. But I think that as long as we ourselves need to capitalize on the products, we should also invite whoever contribute to do the same. So yeah, 50-50, I think that sounds like a good start, and see what happens, basically.
Yeah. And then what I was going to say is, I don't know if you picked up from the thing, like I put up this 12 by 12 that's called 144,000 revenue after materials for each event. I don't know if you picked it up, but I put 25K for an incentive prize, so that you have a quarterly event, and you actually, with the revenue from that, you generate the completion of that product that's been started within the Steam camps into like an incentive challenge, which takes the final line to an actual product. So everything is about, we're taking that money and we're pretty much distributing it again. We're funneling into a so-called centralized effort to get concerted directed development, but all the products are open source. That's a hard sell, but I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
It's also hard if it's based on revenue before we know the actual revenue.
Oh, so by the way, I mean, I don't know if you saw the meeting with 180 Degree Consulting, but yeah, there's a team of 4 students that are working on the marketing stuff. So I basically look at 180 DC on the wiki. You've seen that?
I've seen. There is a video. I haven't looked on the video.
There's a page. I'm putting all of that on the 180 Degree Consulting page on the wiki. And take a look at the project proposal. But basically, it's like, okay, here's basically develop a marketing plan and metrics for how we can really predict our cost of customer acquisition to predict a specific event. And I did run the 12 by 12 concept to them. They seem to take to it pretty well. I said, okay, we'll tell you what needs to happen in order for that to be met. That'll be the product after.
So they're going to build a marketing plan.
Yeah. So they've got 10 weeks to do that. from this
Okay.
week.
10 weeks. All right. But yeah, how about starting with like focusing on, maybe you also can go through the different goals and see what you think about them in terms of if you agree or not.
Go ahead.
And then I can add in your goals, and then we can build a strategy from that based